Hello, hello. Welcome back to Juicy Talk, where we keep it juicy, keep it real, and sometimes we step on toes to save souls, okay? So today, you see my other half is missing. He is not feeling well. Hardy is sick. He is sick. He's not feeling well. And so he's going to be watching from home, hopefully, I think, but I know he's not feeling well today. But today we do have a special guest for you. Today we're going to talk about a book that has changed millions of lives. And it's going to be a very interesting conversation. We're going to help people get their financial life together. The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. So, if you've been paying attention and you've been following me for a while, you know that we've been talking about, we were all collectively reading the Total Money Makeover together all of last month, Black History Month, trying to get our lives together, right? So, now listen, this book is not cute. It's not soft. It's not treat yourself energy. It's discipline, it's structure, it's adulting on the highest level. And if your bank account has been playing hide and seek with your paycheck and you're trying to figure out where your money going, this is the episode for you. Again, I said we have a special guest in the building today. David, he is our money mindset strategist. Welcome to Juicy Talk, and we're going to bring him on in.
Hi
What's up?
everyone. What's up? What's up?
What's up? How are you today?
Doing great. Doing great. Excited to be back. Excited to chat with you guys about this book, and I
Oh,
can't wait to hear what people thought about it.
oh yes. So, it's crazy because when I put it out there for us to have this conversation about the book, I have gotten so much feedback. People have been in my inbox, DMing me and saying, "Hey, oh my gosh, I wish I would have read this book before got a lease on my car." Oh, people have come in to me saying, "Oh, I got my envelopes," and so and it is so many things that I want to talk to you about tonight. And I mean, it's like, it was an overwhelming amount of good information and
Yeah.
things that I realized that I have been doing wrong. I've felt like, for the most part, that I've been pretty good with money. And
Mhm.
I realized some real hard truths about myself.
I think this book has a way of bringing that out a little bit. I really enjoyed this book. I think it was a very practical guide and gives you some step-by-step plans on things you can do. I've read so many books about finance, and some are about theory and some are, kind of give you some general ideas, but I love that this one has a step-by-step plan. So no, this one was one of the reasons why I was excited to read this one is because this is the one I really, really fueled my journey and got my journey towards get my finances together really in order. So I'm excited to chat about this one.
Ooh, so many things that we're going to cover tonight, but we just going to break it down for people who are listening at home in the comfort of their home and maybe had this. So this is going to be for everybody, people who read the book and people who didn't read the book. This is going to be for everybody. And hopefully at the end of this show, if you haven't gotten the book, you will be motivated to go get the book because it was really life changing for me. So let's break it down. What is the book really about?
I think not only does it give you a step-by-step plan, but I think this book really helps with mindset. When I think about the kind of the first half of the book, I feel like is really telling a lot of stories, and you get to hear some real people that work the plan and what they experienced and what they went through. But it literally gives you 7 steps, and I think there's some specific phrases and some things that he says in this book
Mhm.
that just really stuck with me. And one of his famous quotes is, "If you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else."
Man, that's a whole word right there. But what my thing for me was the red-faced child. Like every time I got ready to make a purchase, since I've been reading this book, or buy something impulsively, I think about that little kid that's like, I want it now, mommy, now. Like I'm in a store and I think about that and I'm like, do I really need this right now? And I've been walking away, which is crazy, because I didn't even realize how much impulse shopping that I get tricked into, whether it be through advertisement and or just boredom,
It's
surfing.
easy. That's why it's such a multi-billion, dollar business to advertise to you, it's no matter where you look, like everyone's trying to get you to spend your money on, their widget. And I think it's important when you understand that you're being marketed to, and pretty much everywhere you go, it allows you to, take back some of that control. So,
So I wanna talk a little bit about my favorite chapter of the book, right?
okay.
And my favorite chapter of the book, because for me, the biggest thing that I found so inspirational about the book is the mindset change, right? The behavior change. And I really do identify with what he says about it doesn't matter how much money you make, there is no dream amount, but it's how you spend the money that you have and what you're actually doing with it that makes it so good. And I really, it was so many different personal testimonies throughout the book that really made it hit home for me personally, right? Some of the people that were in the book that were sharing their stories and I was like, "Oh, dang, that's me." And, make my stomach hurt like, "Ooh, I'm that person." Like everything looked good, doing good, but am I doing everything that I should be? Am I one catastrophic incident away from, taking
Yeah.
a serious L? I don't know what that is. Hold on. What?
Yeah, I think when there was one story that they told in the book around someone that, the difference in someone that like had lost their job, and the
Mhm.
difference in like one person being like, thanks for the severance, this is awesome, this is going to get my business jump started and allow me to do what I've always wanted to do, and someone else that wasn't prepared for that. And I
Absolutely.
think the reality of the, the world that we live in, you just don't know when that's going to happen. Because typically at some point in your career or in your life, there's going to be some setback. And, doing these steps and getting things in order really allows you to prepare for that, so that when that, if, when, not if, but when that moment comes, you're not in a panic. You're not in a, an emergency mode, but you have the time to actually, kind of step back, reset, and then, move forward. So,
Absolutely. So my favorite part of the book was chapter 4, right? Chapter 4 to me was really about mindset and behavior and these things that we tell ourselves. It was about the myth busters, right? And the
mhm.
things that we tell ourselves that we don't realize. So I'm going to bring up one myth that really resonated with me because it was a lot. So I'm going to get on some of them. Let me go back. But it was like, this was like the craziest thing for me. I was like, I am so guilty. So one thing, it was like the myth, cash value life insurance, like whole life would help me retire wealthy.
Mm. Yeah, Dave don't like that cash cash like
And then number two, cash value life insurance is one of the worst financial products available.
yeah. Did you
Talk
understand, like, do you understand
wait a minute.
why he said that though?
I
Like,
do. I
okay.
do understand it. I want you to explain it.
So I think a big part of specifically why Dave doesn't like it, and I think that there's a lot of merit to it, is the cost of the product and the value that you get for it. One of the activities or practices that I've done, and I recommend, everyone try it out just to see, is pull up on Google, investment calculator, and put in a monthly amount. Usually, just as a test and a good, frame of reference is what your car payment is. And if you were in putting that into the stock market every single month instead of giving it to the dealership, and see what that looks like over time, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars over time when you allow that, compound interest to build up. And for so many people, they have a car note their entire lives instead of, like, you, even if you get a good car, you've already, bought a new car or used car, paying it off and giving yourself some flexibility to then put those monthly payments into investing. And so it's similar with the whole life. The whole life is a lot more expensive than a term life insurance policy is. And if you were to take that difference between, cash value or whole life and term life and invest that, you have more control not only of your money, but it will grow at a higher rate. So
So
that's kind of
you're
the thought
a person who
process.
have had the same life insurance policy since I was 25. And I remember at work, this man was like, you should really invest in life insurance policy because you're young and you're healthy and it's going to be really, really cheap and you should do it. And I did it. And and then I had kids and I started adding them to the life insurance policy too, and riders and insurance for this and insurance for that. And me personally, when I read that part of the Mythbuster, I felt like an idiot because I was like, I'm paying interest on my own money. Your family really doesn't get that much money once they take the fees out and all the different things that come out with it. If I just took probably the $200 a month I spend on whole life insurance policies, it's almost probably about 200. If I was saving that every month in a higher interest earning account, or like you said, investing it, that is a big amount of money. How much money would I have? Like it would grow so much. And then I wouldn't have to worry about a life insurance policy because I have $750,000 in the bank over, or more at when I'm getting ready
Well,
to,
yeah, and don't confuse it. He does still, want
right,
you to have insurance, but
term,
term insurance, because
right.
it's a lot cheaper.
But for
And
a person who have both, then what does that look like?
it's just a lot of money that's could be better allocated somewhere else. And so, I think one of the ones that stood out for me that really kind of shocked me, and the way he said it is really what stood out, is around sometimes people wanting to keep a mortgage payment so that they can get that tax deduction at the end of the year. And the way he breaks it down and explains it, I'm not going to get it perfect, but he basically says that you're giving you're paying $10,000 in interest to get a few $1,000s back. And so I'll take that bet every day of the week. If you want to give me $10,000 at the beginning of the year, I'll give you a tax return at the end of the year that's 2,000. And so it's like this idea that, like, we need to have, this mortgage. And for most people now, I don't even know if most people even take that deduction, because typically the standard deduction is, even more.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, it was just a really good perspective to kind of hear it put that way.
Yeah, it was definitely something to look at and a shocker for me, just to even think. And that because I've always been taught that it was important to have life insurance policies and you need to have it on everybody and it's important to have. And I'm not saying that it's not, but
It is. It's the type of insurance,
the type
and
of insurance, and I
yeah.
have both. And I was like, can I'm gonna be looking at some things, right?
Well, and
So
also you have to ask yourself where, and all things with finances, like, it's really important to understand how the person that's telling you about the products, how are they getting paid? And and you can sometimes you want to ask that question so that you can understand, are their incentives in align with your incentives,
Mm.
or do they get some big bonuses and bigger payouts if they sell you whole life versus term and things like that. And it's the same with a financial advisor if you ever get that. But I think that the big thing in the book, behavior is 80% of the work, in terms of, what are the actual behaviors that you're doing, and the mechanics and the how you do it is really just the 20% part. The hard part is changing and, adjusting behaviors.
Another one, especially in our community, playing the lottery and other forms of gambling will make you rich. Truth. The lottery is a tax on the poor and on people who can't do math. Don't get mad at me in the chat.
That's a tough one. Obviously from a percentage standpoint, when you look at when those lotteries get really big, like obviously a lot more people are betting on it. And it's exciting to, think about that possibility. And, I've put some money in some of those big pots as well. Like, don't get me wrong. But I think that if you're spending a significant amount of your income on doing that, you have to think about, you know, is there a better option? And hopefully no one's spending hundreds of dollars a month on that. But if you were, that's definitely something that you could actually see your money grow if you were to consistently invest it. So,
And another one of the things that was, you know, the debt management companies, the consolidation of your debt companies. Um, it was really interesting to me just how they make their money off of that and how it really doesn't benefit you in the long run and how you still end up with bad credit behind it. That was like, wow. And bankruptcy, a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't worry about it. I'm going to just file bankruptcy. And how, when you try to go apply for a loan or different things of this nature, you can't.
yeah,
You know,
and
try to go,
the stick stays with you.
yeah, it stayed with you for 10 years. And still, if you try to go apply for like a conventional FHA loan, a VA loan, you can't get it because they're looking at you like, oh, you've been with a debt consolidation company. We already know betting on you is a bad idea. And we never really think that that would cause that, but it's saying that you are likely not to pay your bills. You are showing, oh, you were involved with a debt consolidation company. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and I also think too,
Think about it.
do you I the reason I like this book and the way that they talk about, getting rid of debt, and then, hopefully we can get into some of that shortly. I do think that the consolidation, like, you're a lot of times you're giving your power away for someone else to manage that and do that for you. And do you really learn the skills and the habits and the sacrifices that you have to make in order to get out of debt, or is it just like a crutch, and even when we talked about like the lottery, like there's so many stories around lottery winners that lose all their money or go broke, or get
Mm,
hustled and taken advantage of and don't realize they have to pay almost 50% of it to taxes. And there's all of these things that come along with it, and if you haven't built the skills and the habit of managing and, having money, when you get it, all of a sudden you still don't have those skills. So just as easy as you get it, you can lose it. And so I think that's an important book. Understanding these steps can really help you, no matter whether you come into a lump sum of money or you build it over time. So
okay. So speaking of getting rid of debt, let's talk about some of the core values of the book and how you get out of debt. I want if you can kind of talk to us about the 7 baby steps.
yeah, I don't know if I have them all down, but I know the first one that you're starting with is, saving, getting a quick $1,000. That is your, your first goal is to be able to have $1,000 that you're going to put to the side, and it's going to serve the purpose of being an emergency, for like in any emergency situations. And the reasoning behind that, he talks about Murphy's law and how Murphy always tends to hang around when you're not prepared for it. And so that $1,000 is not a fully funded emergency fund, but it's literally put there to be able to create a buffer between you and life, because we all know life's going to happen. And so you want to be able to have, instead of having to jump right back to a credit card that you just paid off, you want to be able to have that buffer there that you can use in a cash situation if you have a true emergency. And they even talk about it in the book, not an emergency like, oh, I want to get those tickets and they're on sale this week, but a true emergency, where you're going to use it. And so that's step number one. And he talks about having gazelle-like intensity in order to get to that step. And he talks about this gazelle-like intensity a lot throughout the book. And the story is about how gazelles get away from their predators like something like 90% of the time, or 99%, so something like that. It's a really high rate that they're able to get away from their predators. And it's the way they go about, the spark, and kind of like when you get adrenaline and all of a sudden you got this extra energy in order to get out of a bad situation. And so you want to get that $1,000 really quickly, and then the next step is to start what he calls getting out of debt, the snowball method. And that snowball method was probably one of the most powerful things
Mm.
that of the book to me, because when you see your debt in front of you and you're supposed to list all the debt you have, you start with the highest and go down to the lowest. And so you list all the debt that you have, and seeing that in itself, it can be empowering and can be freeing. Sure, it may be a little overwhelming depending on the amount of debt that you have, but at least you're starting to acknowledge that this is where I'm starting. And so once you list all those, you make minimum payments on everything that you have, credit cards or whatever that you have for those payments, loans, etc. But any extra you're going to put towards the smallest debt. And the reason for that is to get you to get some really quick wins in the beginning. And as you start paying off some of that debt, that let's say $100 extra that was going towards a card, once that gets paid off, that then rolls over to the next amount. And now let's say you have $200 a month that you have extra. Now you're putting that towards, after you paid all your minimums, you're putting that towards the next debt. And it does create a snowball effect. And one of the things that was eye-opening for me when my wife and I did that is you really got to see like where your money was going. And it was almost like we found extra money that we really weren't optimizing. And so I'll just give you like a really quick example. We were paying for all of these different like security related type things. So we had these security cameras that we were paying to store it, but then we were also paying for them to monitor it, which we're already paying insurance in our house. So it's like if we were to have something happen in our house, we already have it insured. Do we really need to have a monitoring service as well? So we start to look for things like, are there any ways for us to make adjustments, or can we cut some things? For a lot of our utility bills, we never knew what it was going to be one month from the next, so how do you budget for that? Well, we were able to call all of our utilities, electric, gas, almost all of them have budget plans. And what their budget plan is they look at what your usage is for the year and they split it up into equal increments. And so instead of having a situation where like in the summer, your electricity bill is really high, but in the winter it's really low, you can just have it spread out evenly. And then there's one month at the end of at the end of the year where they, make any adjustments that are needed in order to make sure that you're, paying the full amount. So little things like that, you start to, look for ways that you can really get on a budget and stick to the budget and actually get yourself out of debt. So
Well, I know I had one viewer reach out to me and she let me know that she actually had already started the snowball effect like method. She had heard about it before and, kind of just out there. She had heard it and she started using it and she was just sharing with me. I didn't even know that this was a part of the book, but I have already started using a snowball method and I was paying off debt. And she was like, it's something about seeing my debt split in half, like where I owed 10,000 before, now it's at 5 and I'm almost done paying with the little, you finish paying the little ones off. She was just saying how liberating it is and how happy it's making her, And I just thought that that was like really practical. I was like, wow, I never even thought about it. So then I was like, this is definitely something that I can implement. I have never wanted to be, the book makes everything real, right? So for me, I have never wanted to be out of debt as much as I want to be out of debt now because he does a really good job of making you understand that you're being played. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
They see you coming a mile away and they're using that and they're taking advantage of you. So that
Yeah.
has been like that was really big for me. And so the
Yeah.
third method, how about the build 3 to 6 months of expenses?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll jump on that in one second. I just think you made a really good point, and I don't want to gloss over it, is that the power of believing and starting to see it work for you really happens in this step. And and it's so powerful when you think about the idea, like if you literally just took some time to think about like what you actually make in your paycheck, and what if that was all your money that you got to use? Like it wasn't going to all these different places and all these different causes. It has such a powerful effect. And even in like, I read this book and I'll be honest, I was really skeptical because I was like, oh, could it really, just 7 steps? Could this really work? And then I was like, but what if it does? What if it actually works? Like, let me try it. Let me start working these steps and see, do I notice anything? And I definitely did almost immediately. And just the idea that if it does work, you sacrifice for a few years in order to have the rest of your life. Like, who wouldn't take that bet? If someone told you that you were going to have to work hard for the next 5 years and really get bare bones and, maybe even 5 to 7 years, 10 years, but you would have the rest of your life to really enjoy the benefits of the work that you did, would you do it? And that's ultimately what I feel like they're asking when you read this book.
Yeah.
And so after you realize that instead of you having to pay all these different people, the behaviors that you create as you get out of debt really allow you to accelerate the wealth building journey. And that's why you have to do it in that order, because now you've learned the discipline of sacrifice. You've also learned the discipline of making sure your money is going towards the things that you truly value and you want it to go towards. And then you have all this extra money now that you've paid off this debt that can go right into investing. And so the plan is just so well organized. And so that step 3 around, that's where now that you're out of the debt for all of your main categories, I think it's everything except for your mortgage. Now you can start to actually build a fully funded 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. And this is, what is really gonna propel you for the next part of the journey so that you never have to resort back to credit cards when you get in a situation. So, and you're putting that in a money market account, a high yield savings account. It's not meant to make you rich. That is not the goal for the emergency fund. It's really to be there to benefit you. And I see someone said that they signed up for a SoFi account. That's a really good one that they have a lot of pretty high interest on. It always fluctuates based on what's happening in the economy and the market, but that is a really good one. I actually use that one as well. So
Cool. So, step 4 is investing 15% of your income. And like you said, someone said they Invested in SoFi account. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good one for the high yield savings account. And the investment part, like the 15% of your income, at this point, it makes it even easier because you've now gotten out of debt and you have this chunk of money that's no longer going to creditors or going to people, advertisers, et cetera, et cetera. And now you've built that habit. Now it's a lot easier for you to shift that same money that you were putting towards bills to pay off these bills to now shift a portion of it into investing in the stock market. And that part he goes through as well. He even gives you the ideal kind of percentages to invest. And his it's really investing in different types of index funds. To keep it simplified, an index fund is just a package of a bunch of stocks. And there's value in owning, the most famous one is the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US by market cap. And so that's your Apples, your Microsoft, Nvidia, your Teslas. You get all of those when you're buying into that S&P 500. And so that's just one example of an index fund, but he even breaks down, the percentages to, be invested in them. And that's how you get that consistent return. You're not trying to pick any individual stock. You're not trying to figure out who's going to be the next Apple before they get there. You're just invested in the top 500 and you get the benefit from that growth.
Okay. And step five is saving for kids' college.
Yeah. Yeah. And this can be a hard one in terms of, if you're some people, their kids have an expectation that their parents are going to pay for all of it. And that's not always the case. Sometimes they got to help with that as well. But, learning about this early enough and being able to start this early enough, this could be a huge benefit. We all know the cost of colleges and tuition has skyrocketed, from the time that any of us, if you went to college or went to any additional school after high school, you know what the prices were back then, and it's significantly different. And so there can be a lot of value in starting to do that. But I like that this is after the step of you investing, because he makes a really big, really good point on there, is that like that could be a burden on your kids if you send them to college but you don't have any retirement plan. So now they get out of college and they got to be helping you in
Mm,
terms of retirement. So it's kind of like what you would do on the plane, put your mask on first before you help anybody else. I think that's why there's the importance of that investing step happening in step four, and then the college tuition or kids college funding happening after that. And ideally what you would hope is that you can have your kids get some scholarships and things like that, so that they don't have to tap into all of that money, because that then allows them to be set up for success even after school.
well,
But
I'm going through that process right now with my 18-year-old child, and I can tell you that college is for brand new home, buying a $80,000 home every year for the next 4 years. It is literally, if you want your kid to go to a good college, and I'm not even saying like one of the top, but just a really good private college, or either just a really good, you're looking at 60, $70,000 a year. And I don't think that even with scholarships, you still may have to pay 25, $30,000 a year based on what your income is, and you may not get a lot of scholarships and financial aid. And it's like everybody is cutting back now, so it's absolutely overwhelming when you think about how much college is today. And
mhm,
to you almost have to invest in order and have several streams of income in order to set your kids in the direction where they need to go after high school, because
yeah,
you know back in my day, it wasn't mandatory for people to go to college. Some people did. Some people just went straight to the workforce and they were able to do that. Now, pretty much a decent job requires a higher education, at least
Yeah.
a bachelor's degree. So, I mean, it can be very
It's a tough
overwhelming.
road.
At it.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
And
Yeah.
unless your kid is and I have a brilliant child who's very smart. So if your kid is, for lack of a better term, a average, maybe a 2.7 to 3.0 child, you may not get as much merit scholarships or money out there. So
Yeah.
it's very important. I mean, like I didn't think even going through this process for myself, I didn't think of the importance of I knew she was going to college. I knew that was going to happen. I just didn't know that college was $70,000. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nowadays.
And it
So
also always feels like it comes quicker than you expect as
definitely
well.
I had more time.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's all kind of, different college hacks. I don't think they talk about it as much in the books, but a lot of, students are starting off at a community college and then transferring those credits because you're at least cutting, 2 years of, even the, community ones are expensive now, but they're not as expensive as some of the other schools. And, there's you can get a lot of knowledge no matter where you go from. I think really, we don't have to get into this as much here, but college is around learning how to learn. And a lot of our, students and kids are really more well versed in that because of all the access they have to the internet and things like that. So yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely an expensive, venture, but if you can leave college and not leave with $250,000 of debt, that's a house, a mortgage payment worth of debt. It really can change your lifetime trajectory as long as you don't get out of college and start spending up and racking up as much credit, you know, it in the the meantime. So, but it is expensive. So that's why step number five is to work on that even before, step number six, which is paying off the mortgage. Um, and for anyone, that has taken out a 30-year loan, to pay off a mortgage, it feels like a life sentence of debt. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think that's a really important piece to think about is that the idea of being able to go into retirement and you don't have to worry about the place that you live. You don't have rent increases that are happening every single year. You don't have, most people are spending, $1,000 to $3,000 a month that's going towards a house. And so I always love to like kind of dream a little bit with this step because what could you do with an extra $3,000, $2,000, $1,000 a month, that's in your pocket versus the banks. And and I think that that's just a really the grass feels different. I think he says when your mortgage is paid off, the grass under your feet feels a little different.
Mhm.
So
Greener for sure.
yeah, and these steps build. So now you've got all of this additional money that used to be going towards creditors and all of this debt that's now rolling in, because you've always still been paying your mortgage. It's not like you stopped paying it, but now you have the ability to add extra money onto the principal. Because if you've ever looked at any of those tables or any of those graphs around when do you start paying more towards the principal than the interest, it's like 15 to 20 years into you paying, for this house. And
Mhm.
so if you had extra money that you can put towards the principal, not only do you decrease the amount of interest that you're paying over time, but you also get to make that time frame shorter. So
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. Being able to live and not worry about For most of us, our house debt is our biggest debt. What we pay in rent or mortgage is our highest expense.
Yeah.
And to be able to eliminate that, it's life changing. It's life
Yeah.
changing. Can you talk a little bit about your journey of, paying off your home?
Yeah. Yeah. There's the first house we bought was in Chicago, and we bought it at the height of the crisis. So we moved into our house. I think it was early 2008, right before the housing crisis happened. And so what that meant for us is that we bought at the height of the market, and then a few months later, our property was worth $150,000 less than what we paid for it. And went through all types of emotions, and we thought we are making a great idea. It's your first house, you're super excited about it. And then we also had a job change that came up, about a year later, or yeah, about a few years later after that, and where we wanted to move back to Ohio from the Chicago area. And at the time, we were still kind of going through, the remnants of the crisis, and so we were underwater like 100 to $150,000 still, and so we couldn't really sell the house. Thought about walking away from it, letting it go into foreclosure or short selling it, but there was just something about the idea of like, you've you don't have the house anymore, but you still owe a mortgage worth of debt on it. I couldn't stomach that. And so talked to a number of different people, and I hadn't considered it, but at the time I had a friend recommend, like, well, why don't you try renting it out? And so thankfully we were able to rent out that property for 4 years before we eventually were able to sell it in 2017. But I bring that part of the story up because when we moved to Columbus and we had to buy another house, one of the things that we had to do is we had to move a lot further out from the city. Now, part of it was because the housing values dropped so significantly when you get right outside of some of the main areas. It dropped by like 100 to $120,000. And because we knew we always had this mortgage, at least in the meantime in Chicago, if anything went wrong, we'd be responsible for two mortgages. And so that forced our hand a little bit to buy a house that, maybe was a little bit less cost than, well, it definitely was less cost than what we paid for the Chicago place. But we had to be very conscious about that. And then when we finally sold the property in Chicago, we were able to roll a lot of that. We didn't make any money on that property. We basically broke even, but we didn't have this overhead of, this extra $2,500 a month mortgage payment over our heads. And so we started putting, some of that money that we had to the side in case our renters ever left towards our house. And it was really just following these steps. All these things built up to where we had more and more money that we can put towards paying off the mortgage. And it's not easy. It's a challenge. I remember it being a good 5 years of like not really doing any big vacations. We would do, something here and there, like, maybe a driving trip or somewhere we could go to. But it made all the difference because there's something about the stress that comes off of your shoulders when you don't have all this looming debt. You don't even sometimes realize this weight that you're carrying around. But these are the type of things that, like, people don't want to leave a terrible or toxic job because they know they got to be able to pay this mortgage, and they got to be able to have this payment, and they don't want to lose their car, they don't want to lose their house, they don't want to have to move, like, and these are all obviously serious and important things, but that's the weight that you're carrying around. And so as you start to get out of some of this debt, it just starts to become easier and easier. And then and it gives you some flexibility to make some different decisions. Maybe not only do you want to leave that job, but you want to start something on your own.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a little bit about our journey, but it really helped that we had to buy a house that was, it wasn't at the top of our income threshold. I don't know if they said in this book, but discipline equals freedom. And as you build that in one area of your life, for me it was with the finances, but I found that spilling over to all these other areas of my life, whether it was how I eat, how I work out, et cetera, et cetera. So
That's awesome. And do you still have a house mortgage or?
nah, no, I try to stay away from house mortgages. Once you get out of it, you don't ever want one again. So
How how long have you been living without a mortgage on your house? Like,
um it's probably been about 6 to 8 years now. So, and I'm telling you, it's a different feeling. It really is, and
that's
it's
pretty
one of
good.
those things you can't really even express into words. You got to experience it yourself. You really do, and I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth all the hard work. It's worth the sacrifices, because realistically, I never have to have a mortgage again for the rest of my life. You know, even if I move to another place, as long as I'm buying a place that's, you know, less money than what I'm selling mine for, you never have to have it again. And so I really want people to internalize that and to know that, like, it's something that everyone can do. It's
Mhm.
not easy, but it is something that you can do. And it's the same with this plan. Like, one of the things he says in the book is that the plan works 100% of the time. It's like one plus one equaling two. It
Mhm.
does work 100% of the time. Now, not everyone works the plan
That
or
part.
does the plan or finishes the plan, but if you do it, it works 100% of the time. And I think that that's the biggest piece that you want to take away from, reading the book, is that it's not only possible, there's millions of people that have gone on the journey, and have done it. So,
Yeah. One of the things that was in the book that was really good, like I said, there's a lot of testimonials about how people have changed their life. I mean, it was people that was only making 35,000, single mother, two kids, and got divorced, and now she is debt free. She paid off this, she paid off that through snowball method, was able to send kids. It's so many different stories that really connect and hit home. And there's no magic. I think that was one of the things that really stuck with me too, that there's no magic money number. It's
yeah,
really not about the money, it's about the behavior.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the final step um, that he talks about too, that was which was surprising. Build wealth and give generously. He even put in there and talked about giving back, which I thought was profound because a lot of times in these type of books, or books where it's about investing, you never hear people talk about giving.
yeah. I think it's so important. I mean, it has such an impact on you to go through a journey like this and have these experiences. It's one of the reasons why I get really excited to come on your show and to, share with others, not only, the hope and the possibility, but, the challenges and the struggles that you go through this process. There's a lot of times where, like, the people around you think you're a little bit crazy, can't believe that you're passing up on things today in order to benefit your future. But the reality is that delayed gratification, really allows not only your life to be easier, but it allows you to have these just other options. And I think giving back comes in so many different forms, but you want to, because you start to understand what's possible if others just know that this is available to them. There's another book that I read that's in the same family of Dave Ramsey, by Chris Hogan, called Everyday Millionaire. And it's a strong black man that wrote the book, Chris Hogan, and he's got some YouTube videos and stuff out there too. But it was a phenomenal book, because I think that went kind of hand in hand, because it really helps you see that it's more of those stories. It's more of the background. And for me, like, we're going through these 7 steps really, quickly in less than an hour, but it won't have the same impact as when you read the book and you read some of the situations and the amount of debt that people have
Mm,
clawed out of and climbed out of, and their situations. And not necessarily for a comparison, but so that you can get that hope and that motivation and that dream and that desire to know what's possible and what's out there. And I think that belief is so important, because when you have that and you have a plan for how to get to the goal or destination that you want to go on, it's like putting directions in your GPS. You know what streets to turn on, you know what behaviors to do, and you end up at your destination. You know, and the times are going to vary because everyone's in a different situation. In terms of how much debt or where they're starting from, but the end destination. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's a really important piece, and so reading it is really what I feel like creates the conviction.
Mm.
So,
I would
so
have to definitely agree with you. I think that, I have definitely was like, "Oh, I just need to make more money," not really ever looking at the fact that I might have behaviors that sabotage my higher income every time. If like if the more money, you hear people say more money, more problems, Um,
yeah,
but it's really, you know, more money and sabotage behavior will make
yeah.
you feel like you got more problems. I have definitely had my days of walking past the mailbox like I ain't even checking it today. I'm in having a good day. I ain't checking
Yeah.
the mailbox because I know it ain't nothing but bills in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. They call it lifestyle creep too, where you go from, you used to be okay with grilled cheese and tomato soup, and now all of a sudden you can't eat nothing but shrimp now that you're making this extra money. It's important to keep that stuff in check. I don't know if we want to answer some questions, or I see there's a couple in the comments,
Yeah,
or if we want to see if anyone else wants to share any of their takeaways or anything.
yeah, we can definitely it's some comments in here, so we can
I
definitely
saw
do that.
I
Um,
saw one about job contributions. Um, I'm assuming with that one, they're
oh
talking
yeah.
about like 401k and matching contributions from employers. I can't remember which step it's in within the book, but I do know, and it was one of the things that kind of shocked me when I first heard about it. There is a part that Dave talks about for his method on stopping contributions temporarily so that you can put more of that money towards debt. And so there's a lot of reasons to that. But I'll try to like just break it down in a very simple, like a couple simple, points. One of them is a lot of times the debt that we have is credit card debt, and you're being charged 20, sometimes up to 25% interest. And anything that you're investing in is typically going to be, on average, or average return is 8 to 10%. So you're paying twice as much to the credit card companies as you would even make on your growth. So it makes sense to pause it, but that's where he talks about being gazelle-like intense. Sell some extra things in your house that you haven't used, and go take on an extra job, do some Ubers, like all kind of different things, because you want to try to get out of that debt as quickly as possible. And then when you're out of that debt, you go back to putting the percentage in that will your employers will match, because that is free money. But he does temporarily say stop that so that you can get out of debt. So I think it's after that debt phase that you go back.
That was one of
Mm,
my
I
favorite
did
ones
love
too.
that.
A budget is people telling their money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Yeah, that's directly
Yeah,
from the book, and I absolutely love that quote too. So,
that it's a fantastic one.
and
I,
that's
I
that's
got
the one I highlighted because I was reading my book with a highlighter. And if you could talk a little bit about the envelopes. I know we talked about it a little bit, but if you
yeah.
kind of just give everyone the premise around the envelope.
Yeah, so there's two things I'll say. Throw one quote in that I really love that I had wrote down, and then I'll jump into the envelopes. We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like.
Mm,
And when he said that, I
I
was
I highlighted that one too because I
yeah,
was
that
like,
one stood
"Dang,
out.
I
It
felt that
was the
today."
That's some truth. That's some truth. So the envelope method is part of the budgeting system that Dave recommends, and there's some true genius behind this method. And I've listened to some of his, people calling into his YouTube channel and the radio station, and I'm talking about it because everyone wants to create a new version of his thing. Like, well, what about if I just put it on the credit card because I could get these extra points and, I'm only going to spend the exact amounts and all these things, but it doesn't it just usually doesn't work. Like, sure, you may have one person out there, but he's writing a book for the masses. And so what's the envelope method does is, after you've created your budget and you've separated these categories out, it gives you a very visual and tangible way for you to know when you're done. So if you had $200 for an entertainment, budget, and you've spent that up because you went to a fancy restaurant, when it's $0 in that envelope, guess what? You walk into the park and skipping rocks for the rest of the month. So it doesn't allow you to go outside of that unless you're pulling it from somewhere else. So let's say groceries. Let's say you run out of your grocery budget. Obviously, that's one that's probably going to have a higher priority. So you may have to take some of the money out of the entertainment one that you have left, and now that goes into the grocery budget. Depending on how many different categories of things you have, it can be somewhat of a challenge. But if you're trying to get out of debt, it's a really great practice. And especially when it comes to like the entertainment or the miscellaneous budget that you might have, it really allows you to control some of that. So
Yeah, that was one of the things that for me, um, is gold, and something that I was like, you know what? I'm starting this right now. I just recently went on a trip, right? Um,
mhm,
to Arizona, and I had a set budget in my mind, and I was refusing to go over that budget. Like, I wasn't doing it. I didn't care if I had to eat ramen noodles or bananas the rest of the time. I was not going over that budget. And I spent everything in my budget, but I did not spend not $1 over my budget. And that was
that's
because
awesome.
I was like, I am staying within this parameter. I am staying within this fixed area, and I am not spending. I didn't swipe a credit card. I used a separate card, like a prepaid type card, because
Mhm.
and that was it. And whatever was on that card is all I had to spend, and I did not go over it. And I was like, wow, it made such a difference in just even vacationing. I didn't come back stressed out, like, oh my gosh, I can't
Mhm.
put gas in my car this week.
Well, and that's what happens with so many of us. Whether it's vacation, it could be Christmas. Like, a lot of times we overspend for Christmas, and then the next it's not till January. And that's the reason why he really advocates for not using the credit cards, because I think this a little bit in the last time, is it dissociates the purchase with the pain. You when you eat dinner and you're not paying for it until next month, you don't connect the fact you just don't connect those situations, versus when you have to give that money directly to the waiter, to the server. You feel that a little bit more, and that's important to experience.
Yeah.
So,
I
but I'm
like
glad you had that experience.
Yeah, but I love the envelope method. I am definitely a believer, and that is one thing that I was like, oh, this is a automatic practice.
Yeah.
And I am really committing myself to this year. I have rearranged some things in my life. Like, everybody know I'm a traveler. Like, I like to be outside in the summertime. I don't even do the show in the summer, so I can't be outside, right? But I have committed myself this year to really moving in a budget conscious way,
Yeah.
really making sure that I am following the steps and that I am going to do this, because I do believe in the principle. What is it? Live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. I hear it
Yes.
in my head daily. Like, it plays.
it's it's awesome. Think you froze up on me. Did we lose you?
All right, we back. We had a internet freeze or something.
Yeah,
It's raining real bad here. So I guess, we had an internet freeze, but we back.
I
But
love it. I love it. I love the comment that just got posted too, working on the $1,000 emergency fund. It's
mhm.
it's 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 a journey worth taking. I think if anything, I want to make sure the audience knows is that it's you got to start with step number one, and when you start there, all it's going to do is you'll be able to build that momentum, and take each step one step at a time. And that's what's great about having a community of people that are focused or like-minded or want to do something together, is that you have this power that comes together in community. And so, being able to, have a group of people that you can talk to and chat with about some of the successes as well as the struggles can be very empowering.
Yeah, I know for me, like I said, I am really committing myself to working these steps because I'm like you. I just want to see what'll happen. What will happen if I do it? If I follow these steps that seem relatively very simple. These are things that you can implement right away. $1,000 emergency fund, you know, um, snowballing your debt,
Hmm.
and I was like, I'm committing myself because I really want to be in a place where financially I can live. Like, I can struggle a little bit, cut back a little bit, just so that I can live like I want to live. You know how I want to
Hmm.
live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that surprised me the most is that $1,000 that I first built, I put in an envelope, and I, had initially it was, in an envelope before I built the emergency fund, and, had the additional. I never wound up having to use it. It was
Mm.
almost like, I think he said he called it Murphy repellent, because it's something about having that security that and that's why it's so important, because it literally starts to lower your blood pressure, like it just takes a little bit of that stress off. And obviously, as you continue to go through the steps, you see, like, it's like, take one weight off my shoulder, take another weight off my shoulder, take another weight off my shoulder.
Well,
So,
I'm committed to the snowball for sure. Like, I don't have a whole lot of overhead debt, but I have some little things that, that I shouldn't be paying. And I'm like very, very committed to doing it. Oh, she
oh,
said
that's
another
awesome.
quote. Your largest wealth building asset is your income. When you tie up
Tie up your
income,
income.
you lose.
Absolutely. It's absolutely, that's
That's
fire.
really a good one. It's all about mindset. It's all about mindset. So I want to real quick. One of the things that I found um, that I really liked, it talked about this woman in a book who was over 40, divorced, restarting, helping her adult kids. And what would you say to a person that's in that situation? They're starting over, divorce, they feel like they're behind financially. What would you say to them, man or woman? But what would you
Yeah.
say to them?
I mean, I think the advice is somewhat universal. It's you got to start somewhere, and
Mhm,
starting somewhere, it's going to start with the mindset first, and that's why reading these books. I'll be honest. I listen to the book, at least once a year. I'll do it through YouTube now, because there's a lot of, audio books of it on YouTube now that I have the core principles down and I've read them. So it's a great reminder. And so if you start with the mindset and you start with the steps, all of these steps will successfully build upon each other, and it culminates in you building a future for yourself. And 40 is perfect time, because, like, look, no one's gonna lie, if you started at 20, like, would it be better? Yes. But a lot of times when you're in your 20s, you don't really have a lot of discretionary income. And as you start to get in your 30s and 40s, that's when you start to see some of the, bigger incomes, and in your lifetime usually happens in your 40s and 50s. And so you got to start somewhere, start with a plan and work the plan. And you can't go back 20 years and start over. So start today, and build, going forward, because what you don't want to happen is in 20 years to be in the same spot, or to be saying, man, I wish I had started at 40, because then you would have had 20 years of growth.
Mm,
So just go ahead and make that commitment to start today. 25 years is a long time to be able to have your money grow. Most of the, scenarios and calculators are for 30 years. So you're actually starting at a good time. You just have to start. And 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 that's the hardest part for most people, is to think about what it's going to look like 25 years from now, 30 years from now, when you want to be able to retire. And so if you can start now, you can get consistent now, you can build the habits now, you'll be fine when it's time to retire. So
that's
that's
good.
that's what I would share. You're in a
So
great
start
time to
now.
start.
Start where you at and be consistent.
That's all you can do, is start where you're at. And so it's important to, realize the situation. And that's where creating the budget and putting the debt and getting that stuff in front of you can really give you perspective. Because you'll hear a lot of times people say that, like, oh, I really value this, or hey, this is my number one priority. Well, are you actually spending and putting your money towards that number one priority? I can't remember what the quote is, but it's something like, you can tell, what people value by what they spend their money on and what their calendar looks like.
Mm,
Because if you're not actually, showing that tangible, area that you place value on, then you have to reconsider, do you really value it? Do you really value your freedom and the flexibility of being able to say, I'm done working? Like, because at some point you're going to be either forced to stop working because you physically can't, or you can choose. You don't have to work to 65, 70. I know when I started off, that was not the game plan. And I was like, I don't know when it's going to be when I stop working, but I'm not working to 60 to 70. That's not my goal.
I feel you.
And
That's not
so,
my goal either. I wanna definitely be completely and totally retired by 53, 54. I want to be done and I want to be able to
yeah.
do the things that I want to do. So now we're going to move into another part of the show called rapid fire. So
All
I'm
right,
going,
let's go.
and then we're going to do the budget rapid fire, right? Credit cards. Yes or no?
No, don't
Okay.
do it.
Why?
Just because of the things we talked about. Like, you not only spend more money when you use credit cards, even the most disciplined person, like, you usually spend 10 to 30% more. It's one of the reasons why they want you to use credit cards. It's why there's tap to pay. It's why on Amazon you can scan with your palm. Like, the less friction there is for payments, the more easily you spend. It's like the comparison is like, do you drink more when you go to an open bar wedding than a cash bar?
For
There
sure.
you go. It's the same with the credit card.
Look,
do you
enough said. Look,
do you spend more when you could just swipe versus when you actually have to go to an ATM and pull out money? It's
that's
the same thing. So
okay.
think about it that way.
All right. Car notes.
Try to avoid them. I get most people probably already have them, but if you can get out, like, as soon as you get out of it, don't go into another one. This is what I would say. Keep that car for at least 10 years if you can.
Okay. That's what I, for me, I know soft life is what I'm looking forward to. Soft life. And for me, that means being able to relax, live comfortably, travel, know, live abroad if I decide I want to. That is the goal. And
You
retire
do
while
want to, trust me.
I do.
Because
And,
I need somebody to visit.
live abroad and be able to do that while I'm young and healthy and able to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
you use that car payment to make you wealthy. Like, literally, if you took that same $500 a month and then invested it into an index fund over the 20 to 30 years, that alone would probably make you a millionaire. So
somebody said I made a cash payment today and felt like I was on the way to my total money makeover. Thank you, David.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm. Somebody
All
said,
right.
Alexis is 20 years old. We know you don't have a car note. Cash purchase. Yes.
That's
Def-
how you do it. That's how
yes.
you change. That's how you change generations to be able to show people that that's possible.
Yes.
What you got? Any more rapid fires?
That was it.
That
That
was
was
it.
my two
Okay.
favorite ones. What is the one thing you would like for us to take away from the book, from this conversation? What's the one thing you want to stick in our heads and want us to remember?
It's so easy to get really excited and get really pumped up and to want to start that journey. In order to sustain it, you gotta keep it in front of you, whether it's the material that you're reading, whether it's you're listening to it on YouTube, whether it's you're talking about it, and bouncing it off, close friends. Because I wouldn't necessarily just go out and start sharing with everyone, because that can be deflating sometimes, because you may hear things like, oh, I tried that and it didn't work. But one thing that's so important to realize is that just because it didn't work for somebody else, you don't know their situation. Maybe they didn't do it the way it was supposed to be done. It would be the same as if someone told you, oh, I tried that college thing and it didn't work for me. Does that mean you not gonna try it, or you not gonna just because someone else it didn't work for them? And so I can tell you, and you can tell from all the stories in the book, it does work. And so the one thing I'd love for everyone to leave with is take some action on it, and do the first few steps. If you don't like it when you get out of all your debt, then just come talk to me and you can start giving me some money and I'll take it for you. I'll get you back into it.
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding.
no,
But on a serious note, like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you get to the destination and you decide that, like, hey, this ain't for me now that I'm out of debt and all my money that I make from my check is coming to me, you can always restart your debt path. But I could almost guarantee you, once you realize how impactful it is and not having that stress on you, you're not going to go back to it.
yeah, that
Uh,
that's that made it real. Thank you for that. That made it really. You can always go back to that once you pay it all off. It's up
yeah,
to
once
you
you experience it,
to go down
you
that
know,
road.
but you just develop too many really great habits, and it's very similar with almost anything in your life. When you've whether it's you've had a battle with health, or weight, or some kind of challenge that you've had to overcome. Once you've done it and you've learned how to build that skill for it, you're not going to go back at it the same way. You're just not, because you've grown, you've learned, and you have a different understanding. So
Someone said, my coworker says the book is on. My coworker saw the book on my desk and he swears by this book. He read it several years ago. He and his wife now has savings and no credit card debt.
it's
Wow,
the
that's
it's
dope.
it's it's the way, and it's
Okay.
obviously he sold over what 5 million something copies, I think it says on the top of the book. There's a reason why it's selling like that, and it's almost like getting a look behind the curtain and understanding what's happening with the way that we're being advertised and the amount of things that we're bombarded with, that creates this intense like pressure, like, oh, I gotta have this. And when you start to understand that and you see how things are being marketed to you, it really does change the way that you look at things. And I don't know, there was some study that I read a while ago. It was something like they had created this program for buying cell phones where you could like opt in to get the new one every couple of years. And you basically are making payments on, it's like you're renting a cell phone. And it
Mm,
was something like, if you stop doing that over time and you invested that money, it was something like it would grow to 300, $400,000
wow.
by the time you stop working. And it's those type of adjustments, those small type of adjustments that you make in your life that will completely change the trajectory. Whether it's that car note, you save, let's say it's $500, and that's probably actually a cheap car note, if you can find one for $500 now, a month. And then you start adding the cell phone, the buying the new one, like you start adding all these little things up. and it turns into a significant amount of wealth if you can just get it invested in the market. So
It just seems the overall thing to me and the reoccurring theme of the book is if you change your habits, you change your future.
yeah, you change your life
And
and the life of those that around you, which
yeah,
is even more powerful because you get to have that generational impact.
I thank you for this. This has been a great conversation. I mean, I want if you would like to do this quarterly, like in the chat, if this is something that you think that has been really helpful, you enjoyed this conversation, let us know if you want us to continue talking about finances. Also, if you get an opportunity, if you go over to YouTube, you'll see where I have a survey. It's in the link on YouTube. If you click on that, go take the survey for us. We want to get some feedback to know if this is a topic that you want us to keep talking about and if this is something that we need to keep talking about that's beneficial. Because I don't know about you, like I'm at the age where pretty soon I'm getting ready to retire. I want to make sure that I am financially at the place that I want to be. I don't want to be a burden on anybody, but I want to take financial responsibility for myself and be able to live like I've never lived. Okay. Before. I want
Absolutely.
to live like
Absolutely.
I've never lived before. I want that for my life. So, I definitely, if this is something that you would want to do and you want to continue to do, please go over there, take that survey on YouTube. If you are not watching it on YouTube, then you would just go over to Juicy Talk on YouTube, go on to today's show, and then click the link that is on there and do the survey. Also, if you are after the show, go over there and watch that link. And um, I appreciate you. Thank you. This was a wealth of information. I know I seen in the chat someone said they're excited. I'm excited. I'm excited to take this journey with my Juicy Talk viewers and watch us all get out of debt and us all traveling, sitting on beaches in the future,
I
because
love it.
we
That sounds
saving our
great.
money and we invested and we got all this residual income coming in. That's what it's about.
I
So
love
I'm
it.
definitely excited about it and I can't wait to see where it goes. It is not too late. If you have not read the book, go read the book. Get the book. I know for me, I'm a reader. I like to read. It was really, really good just to open and turn pages and highlight the different things that were important to me that stuck out. I'm a person that likes to go back. I am a visual learner, so I like to go back, look at things, check it off, write it down on post-it, stick it on my mirror, cash only, cream.
That's how you build those habits, you know. That's when it starts to become, you know, just what you do.
Yeah,
So I love it.
somebody else said they've been taking notes. Thank you for the great info. So yes, this has been a whole vibe, and I really want to get that feedback so we know if y'all want us to continue talking about this, you want us to continue having David on and come talk about um, financial strategy. Definitely want to make this something that we do all the time. Finances is something that we always, it's the tough conversation nobody want to talk about. People don't want to talk about money. It's like taboo. But I feel like this has been a really electrifying conversation and something that we can really hold on to with tangible goals that we can meet. So I'm really
Mhm.
excited about it. Thank you, David.
Thanks for
Don't
having
No problem. Don't hang up. Don't,
me.
log off. I want you to hang out in the back, okay? Thank
You
you so
got it. All
much.
right. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That was a whole vibe, right? That was such an awesome show. Listen, debt is stressful. Money fights ruin relationships. Financial chaos, oh my God, it steals our peace. But discipline brings freedom. Whether you love David Ramsey or you think it's an extreme, the principles work. Spend less, pay off debt, save intentionally, invest consistently. It's right there for the pudding. You can't help it. It gotta work, right? That's not hype, that's structure, that's discipline. And structure builds security, and that's what we want. This has been Juicy, y'all. Another Juicy Talk production. We're here to fix mindsets, relationships, and today, your bank account. So we ain't just fixing my relationships, mindsets. We want to fix your bank account too, because we want to be a whole, all around. So thank you for joining us. I'll see you next episode, and y'all have a great evening. Peace. We out.